Well, hello everybody. You know, it just wouldn't be Tim time if I didn't have to take the radio back apart that was on the bench. So the 740, the IC746 as we call it, the antenna tuner, I don't believe it's working the way it should. And I kind of did some research on it, and apparently that's a typical thing with these, for the antenna tuner to not be working correctly. And there's two different motors in the back here, and I can zoom in and show you. One seems to work and try and adjust, the other one doesn't. But let me see if I can get an antenna into this thing, and I'll show you what I'm referring to and how I arrived at this conundrum. So let me get it ready to go. Okay, so I have it going through the dummy load on antenna 1, and a couple of things you can see. So right now it's telling me the auto tuner's on. You can see by the little tune guy there, and I'm letting it do its auto tune thing. So if I just change a band, it should pick that up and go. We'll just change, and then we'll go back to 14 or what we at. Stick it there. Let's see what happens. So let me see when I turn the tuner off. When I turn the tuner off, received actually sounds better. But, okay, we'll let it do its thing, say it's tuned. Again, with the dummy load. So I'm going to turn this off, because you shouldn't need a tuner with the dummy load. See what our SWR is, this guy right down here. You can see the little first block lights up, so it's pretty much 1-to-1. Now I'll put the tuner on, and it's on auto tune, but I'm even going to go through the manual tune. Seems to be taking a long time to tune up. Okay, tune turned right back off again. It's telling me it can't tune up. We'll turn auto tune on and see what happens when I key it now, just with the tuner in. Remember the SWR down here. Whoa, Infinity SWR. So what I noticed was, and I'll try and get you a view behind the scenes, because I know people. Alright, you probably won't be able to see it because it's just a slight sliver inside behind it. These are the two motors you see, one on the right and one on the left, and then there's a ribbon cable running on top of the one. Let me turn this down. The one on the right, this guy over here, he seems to be trying to tune, and I can see that collar moving back and forth, back and forth. Of course, maybe it's slipping on the collar, I don't know. This one here, the one on the left, never really seems to move. He moves about, a quarter of an inch or maybe a half inch, and that's as far as he or she moves. That's it. So no matter what band I go to or anything. So I think we might have a motor problem. But I guess we'll have to get a little bit more off to take a look at this. Now I have seen these motors on Amazon. I think somebody bought 5 of them for like $15. So I don't know what kind of dependability you can get out of these motors when you're looking at that kind of pricing. But one fellow did say that they worked really good for replacing on this. The only thing he had to do was change the wiring harness, or the connector. I guess they were wired differently. Somebody else said that like 2 of the motors didn't work. But again, if you're getting $15 and you're getting 5 motors, you probably could afford to miss 2 of them. I mean, what am I going to do with the rest of them? The only thing is that makes me think that they might be some really junky things and may not last as long. So anyhow, I'm going to take this apart and see what I need to do to get to those motors. And if you're interested in doing this, or we'll do a little more research, Paul over at Mr. Carlson's lab actually repaired his a while back, and I found that video and watched it just recently. I found it and watched it, and he actually takes it apart and repairs the motors. So it looks kind of like an interesting task to attempt. And again, like I said, if I screw it up that bad, I can always replace them. But yeah, Mr. Carlson would do probably a way better job at explaining this and doing the repair than I do. So hit him up, take a look at his page. There's some really good information there. Let me get this apart, and I'll clue you back in. Did want to use my camera to take note of some things. This connector here, I don't believe that comes out. You have to either unsolder it or move it. The speaker, which we had out already, goes there. The two motors go to the right and left, and they're, as you would imagine, the one on the left goes to the left, the one on the right to the right. This is another ribbon tape. The J4 here comes up from beside the case. The one with the yellow lead goes to where it says yell, and then the other one comes from this side of the case. There's another ribbon cable right here, and I'll have to unsolder the two grounds and the two center conductors for the coaxial connectors, and that should be about it. So another thing I wanted to add is I have become quite used to wearing a wristband or making sure I'm grounded out, and I'm trying to keep that practice going. Not as necessary with tube equipment, but when you get to stuff like this, yeah, it might save you some money. Something I will add here is the way I chose to take these out was I actually removed the connectors from the back of the radio and unsoldered them rather than try and unsolder the wires from inside the radio and pull things apart. But anyhow, there was one back coaxial connection that had to be left as it was too, because it also was a soldered in joint and didn't really need to unsolder it. I just moved it over out of the way, and as you can see, the board flipped over very nicely. Yes, now I can see the motors, but can I still get to them? No. So I actually take this plate off, I believe, and then I can look inside there. I had to use a little more heat than I like to use. You can see how big the ground planes are. So, sorry. All right, so I'm going to take this pan off. There's just a couple screws here to take this off. And put these, here's 1, 2. Make sure they're both the same. 3, and then we can get a look inside the antenna tuner. Maybe we'll be able to see something. We'll be able to at least check those couplers and the capacitors. If that's all moving freely, then we kind of know it's got to be the motor. I mean, it could be the motor driver circuit, but I really doubt it. All right, let me get another can to put things in. Put these in here. And we put that up out of the way. Okie dokie. Here the lid comes off, like so. Remember that black felt side was facing up. I'll just put that back there. And I'm going to lift this up so you can look down in. Alright, hopefully you can see kind of down in. There's the one trimmer, or maybe the one variable capacitor here. Here's the other one right here. Let's see if this one even moves. I can feel the motor grinding a little bit when it goes to move, but it moves. Let me try this one. This one, the motor actually feels smoother when it moves. Let me see if I can move this coupling by hand a little bit. There we go. Yeah, something's binding right there. So let me, I'll remove the coupling, the screws that hold the coupling in place, and then maybe we'll know for sure what it is. I believe they're Allen wrench screws. I know without causing too many problems. Apparently not. Hang on. So I think what I'll do is just, since I'm this far anyhow, I believe I just take the rest of these screws out. I have just a couple on the outskirts here. Everything else has been removed, so this is trying to work in the hole. And I'm probably going to have to take it off anyhow to get the motors. So let's see. There's one. And that may be the last one, unless there's one hidden down there somewhere. I think that is the last one. And out it pulls, that easy. That's what it looks like. So we find a place for it on the bench here. We'll slide the radio out of the way, get the screws out of the way so I don't knock them in for a loop. It looks like the case is cracked, but it's not, just in the forging. Hang on. Alright, so here's the Allen wrench, and I think it's a, I'm not going to tell you. No, I think it's 1.5 millimeter. And it's probably got a screw on each side. I don't know for sure yet. But there's the shaft that comes from the capacitor, and there's a shaft that comes from the motor. So it's going to grab onto each side. And then the motor should, I don't think that, yeah, they just sit on these. Those are just like indexing shafts, and they just hold the motor where it has to be. Let's see, here's the other doohickey. And on that side. Yeah, see, the motor just pulls right off once you get all the collars loose. And then let's just see, look how easy this is probably going to turn. Yeah, this nice and easy. Does seem to hit a high spot in here, but it's kind of weird. It's not like it's grinding. Now it's gone. It must have just been because it hasn't moved in so long. It's probably just the lubricant on the shaft itself. Okay, so let me go ahead and see what... Oh, I see. Okay. I'm imagining that when it hits, as you can see, there's stops in here. There's a stop on this side and a stop on that side. And then the shaft goes, the motor goes through, and it's keyed so that it stops when it hits that and stops when it hits that. Okay. Let's see, I know, so that's keyed. Is the, so the motor itself will be keyed because of this washer that has the stop built right into it. You can see that. But the actual couplers, they don't appear to be keyed. So I can probably tighten this side up. This is just the side that's on the capacitor. And that would have been, remember I said it would feel tight. It was just that there's kind of oil holding it to the plastic coupler. And it was just tight with the oil, but once I broke it free, it was happy as a little clam to move. So let's see. 1, 2. So there's only two of those on each, two of the set screws on each side of each coupling, so that'll be a total of 4. And then we're going to make sure we get this guy back where it has to go. And the way it sits in there is with the extrusion, the little pointer part, it faces out, not in. I guess if it was in, it would sit against the coupling, so that would be kind of self-explanatory. So what I want to do is I'm going to pull this apart real quick and see if I can come up with anything. It looks like there's 4 tabs, and that's what Mr. Carlson did on his. And I'll pull them apart and see what I come up with. you get out of the way. You go back in here until I need you again. Well, I didn't mean to think you watched all that, but anyhow, since you did. And what Mr. Carlson found was that this shaft was supposed to be tight up in through here. Possibly he thought it might have been some type of glue that they used to hold it together, because you can see there's, and I don't know if you can see, but I'll try and make it so you can see. If you see there, where is it? There's little extrusions on this, and they match up with the little extrusions on the inside of this. And I know that you probably can't see it too well. Let me spin my hand. Let's see which way it would be for you. I don't know if I can zoom in any better than that. I think that last one might have been all she wrote. But anyhow, there's like 3 little notches cut into this, and then those 3 little extrusions rather cut into this black part, and then there's 3 little notches sitting here, and that, when that causes this to spin, the motor part of it, we would call it the motor mechanics, when it causes this black piece to spin, it should be spinning the shaft, and I think what's happening is it's not tight in there. So what he actually did was he took it apart, cleaned the heck out of it, and then super glued it in. So we're going to give that a shot. I just happen to have some super glue. Now he used some really good stuff. I bought some super glue, but I actually bought it for something else. But you know, it's here. We'll give it a shot and see how it works, and we'll stick it back. Maybe stick it back together. We'll check the other one and maybe do the same thing with that. We're going to do one while we're this far in, and then we'll put it back together. So let me zoom out a little bit so we're back to normal sizes, and I'll clean that all out a couple of times, and we'll super glue it and see how it works. Alright, so I got the other one super glued and sitting over here, and I dare you to use super glue and try and do this without swearing or super gluing your fingers together. Hopefully that did a good job of sealing it. I'll let it sit about 5 minutes before I mess with it. But you know, you always underestimate or overestimate how much super glue you're going to need. So take a look at this one. Now this one didn't seem to be as bad, so it'd be interesting to see if I take this apart, if maybe this one's not as broke, or maybe it doesn't look broke at all. So what I actually did when I took these out is these little areas here where they peen over the steel. It's sometimes you can get under them and pop them up a little bit, but what I did with this is I actually was able to get my screwdriver over underneath one of these and start on the corner here, and I worked this one out, and then I came and worked this one, then I worked this one, and then by the time I got to that one, I was able to just jimmy it out. And then I don't know if you can see my drawing over here, but before I pulled the gears out, I don't know if you can see that or not much. Before I pull the gears out, I kind of make a dummy drawing of how they go, and as I pull each one out, I put it at the exact orientation where it is, and I usually label them, you know, ABC 1, 2, 3, whatever, so I know what order to put them back in. It usually works okay when there's only a few gears. You get too many and you start to have issues. So okay, here's this one glued together. It seems to be pretty darn tight. So I'm going to leave it here. And that goes with these guys right here. Then I want to take a look at this one. And I'll put this one over here, but I sure could use another piece of paper. So I'll draw my picture again on this one. We'll put that there. And then I'll probably just let them set up overnight, because I don't know if some of that glue is still wet inside, and if it drips on, then I'll have a non-rotating motor. So let me draw this up and get this one apart too. Okay, so here's where I'll pull this out, and here's where we'll see if we have the same issue. Same issue where it's not really held in there by much, except for luck. There's actually a spring down at the bottom. Doesn't look like a very strong spring. And I'd imagine that holds that up. I wonder if you just adjusted that spring. I don't know if you can see in there in the very bottom. It's like a little 3 legs, but it's bent. And I would imagine that holds this up. Let me see what kind of tension it has. So this one's tight coming out of there. Let's see. There's a decent amount of spring tension. The other one didn't have that much spring tension. I don't know. You know what I'm going to do? Missing out at all. This one I'm going to bend the spring tension a little bit more. Nothing crazy. You can see it just kind of 3 legs, and I'll bend each one down just a little bit more. But I don't know if these are all the same, but I would blame the lack of spring tension more on the fact that these were somehow glued at some point. But you know, that might have been an older design of spring, that they were glued and they didn't have an older motor. They were glued and they didn't have a spring. And that might have been a fix for them. It might not be the best fix, but it has a decent amount of spring tension. I think I'll probably clean it and glue it anyhow. I mean, I'm in here. What the heck's difference does it make? And all the time, this time the spring stuck to it. Come on. Get back on in there, you bad spring. Okay. And we'll shoot some glue in it and see what happens. Wish me luck. Alright, so there you have it. They're back together, 2 of them. And this was the Let me see. This was the first one I took out. So this was the one that was not working. So it went in this position right here. So let me put the other one in first because that's the one I took out last. Remembering that there is a stop here that has to kind of be put onto the motor first. Then from the motor, why do I have to, from the motor, it goes through the doohickey. Now something that's kind of interesting here, they must have been slightly uphill. If you look at them, these aren't straight across. Well, they get like probably that one to that one, then that one to that one. Because originally I thought, well, maybe they went just like that, but it will not reach. Come on. So I get the stop in there first. Like I said, it's like a washer. And then that one will go. Okay, and then same thing with this one. The motor turns nice and smooth now. So I have it into the stop. So I didn't really pay much attention or index how these how the stops were related to the couplings or where the capacitors were. So I'm kind of hoping when I put this in there, it's just going to learn that. It's going to turn so far and realize that it can't turn anymore and that's the end, and then turn the other direction. So in my haste to take this out, I didn't really pay attention to the indexing of the capacitor versus the motor and the motor stop. So I want to put it together with the capacitor fully meshed and the motor stop being done on this side right here. I'll do for both. I'll look up, see if I can find a little bit more about that before I get too involved with putting this in, just to make sure that that is correct, and see what I can come up with. Make sure that everything else looks good on this solder wise, which it pretty much does. So okay, I'll be back. Okay, just I could find that was the correct way to put those in. So let's fire it up and see what happens. We'll take the speaker down a little bit more. That's all I need is have it laying on some power supply line or something. Okay. Alright. Dummy loads in. Power supply is turned on. 13.6 volts. Power on. Can't really see in there too well. Let me turn this down a little bit. Can't really see in there too well. Let's see what happens when I turn the antenna tuner on. Looks like it was tuning for something. Through the dummy load with the tuner on. Let's see what happens when I transmit. A couple of watts on, we'll say AM. Let's try the tune. And a tune. Very good. So that's on that band. Let's try 28. The auto tuner is turned on. It's the one. Oh, how about 29? Let's try 28 something. Do a little bit of FM repeater up there at 29.6 or whatever the heck it is, but we'll go to 28.5. Okay. 28.5. Come on. Close enough. Okay. Tuner's on. Let's see when we actually tune it. Hope I turned it off. Wow, that was quick. So when I transmit, perfect. Less than 1 to 1. So So that fixed it, and then that was the correct setting. So if you're setting your capacitors, make sure they're both flush and they're fully engaged, and both of those stops would be on, staring at it from the front, the left-hand side stop. You saw the motor repair. I don't know. I mean, if you want to glue it, I guess that's one of the repairs. To me, it seemed like they had the spring tension underneath, and whether that was just maybe an upgraded motor, I don't know. So let me finish putting this back together. It's definitely, if you're going to take it apart enough to put new motors in it, you might as well mess around with the motors you have, because at least you know they might be a little bit better, but give them a shot. All right, sorry. Let me put this back together, and we'll do a final roll, and we'll go from there. Let me try one more band here. We'll go to 21. It's on tune already. Let's transmit. Perfect. Wait, that was upper side. Now let's try it on AM. See. SWR is way down here. I don't know if you can see it. It's 1-to-1. So makes me happy. I'll just finish putting this back together. I gotta. We'll go from there. I'll be right back. So something to add here, just in case you're playing with one of these. Any of these things that have a aluminum, even the steel cases, when you're putting these screws in, and these have these kind of screws, not machine thread. Let's see if I can. There you go. Well, when they put these in, they'll cut threads. So if you put them in and they're not lined up right, they'll cut new threads. You might get away with that once or twice, but after a while you end up with a hole with no threads. So what I recommend is you start them gently, and then if they don't go in real easy, bring them back out and you can kind of feel it bump. And that's usually, it lines up with the threads. And I don't tighten them down until I get the last one in, because if it's off just a little bit, you won't get the screw started and it'll start to cut threads. And you know, of course, once you start with one, then they'll all be out of alignment. So I just run them in a little bit, and yeah, make sure you prepare to take your time doing this. You'll be thinking like doing the electronic troubleshooting, and the soldering is the toughest part. But these are the parts that, when you're working on your radio or something, and every time you see it and there's a screw that doesn't go in because there's no threads left, kind of loosen that one a little bit. You kind of regret that. So, like I said, take your time when you're doing these. The machine screws aren't quite as tough to get in, and they generally don't cut their own threads. But you can certainly cross thread those just as well. And, these have all started out pretty good, but sometimes, like I said, you saw me do the one there. If it's not going in real easy, you just back it up, and you'll feel it kind of bump, and that usually means it lined up. Sometimes you have to do it 2 or 3 times, but it'll usually fall right in, and you'll know right away when you basically, you don't need any force to run the screw down. Just my tip for the day. Okay, with the camera back down at terrestrial level. Let's see. We'll just shoot up at anything. Let's put sideband. I'll find it in here yet. Oh. There we go. I had to put the antenna where it belongs. let's go the other way, back down into the ham band. The ham band. I can see the tuner, it tries to tune when I go to certain points. So let's just see, let's just take it and do a real low wattage on AM at 175. And see what happens. Remember, we're looking at the bottom scale here. There it is. Brought it down. Okay. So, I know you're supposed to test them on higher wattage, but we'll save that for the We'll save that for the dummy load. And let's go back to sideband and lower sideband. So, all right. So it's done again. Thanks for watching. Hope you found something you can use. What did we learn today? Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Part 15. And take a chance, I guess. And if you see, if you do make a mistake or you forget something or forget to pay attention to how something is, there's a lot of information on the internet. Look around, just look at people's pictures. That's what I try and do, is post a lot of photos of how things were, or at least stills before I took it apart. And you can watch my video and say, oh, that's how it's supposed to look before Tim messed with it. So anyhow, that's all I have. Thanks for watching.